When 16-year-old Danielle Moore was arrested for selling lemonade, the officer had no idea he was detaining the daughter of a prominent judge. This moment marked the beginning of a scandal that would expose systemic racism and upend the lives of everyone involved. What happened next would shock even the most jaded observers. But let's start from the very beginning. On a sunny street in a quiet suburban neighborhood, 16-year-old Danielle Moore, a black girl with determined eyes, was finishing setting up her lemonade stand. She carefully smoothed out the yellow tablecloth, propped up a handmade sign that read, "Lemonade, $1. All proceeds go to helping children," and wiped condensation off the clear pitcher of lemonade. Danielle knew this was more than just a school project. It was her way of contributing to a local legal initiative aimed at supporting low-income families. Passers-by smiled as they walked past, with some stopping to buy lemonade and leaving more than the requested amount. Danielle felt proud, seeing her idea making a tangible difference. But in the distance, she noticed a patrol car. As it pulled up, a tall man with a stern expression stepped out, Officer Todd Bennett. At 42 years old, his uniform was impeccably pressed, and his irritated gaze made his mood clear. "Do you have a permit for this?" he asked, curtly, approaching the stand. Danielle looked up, her expression calm, and replied, "A permit isn't required here. This is a charity effort, sir." Todd crossed his arms, his gaze hardening. "This isn't a marketplace. Pack this up, or there will be consequences." Danielle took a deep breath, keeping her composure. "I know my rights. I'm confident I'm not breaking any laws." Those words only seemed to anger Todd further. He loudly accused her of obstructing public order, and without waiting for further explanation, he grabbed her arm and snapped handcuffs onto her wrists. The gathered neighbors began recording the scene on their phones. "She's just a kid," shouted one woman. "Leave her alone," added an elderly man. But Todd ignored them, shoving Danielle into the patrol car. She held back her tears, silently repeating to herself, "I'm strong. I can handle this." At the station, Danielle was placed in a holding cell, while Todd, satisfied, wrote up his report. He was convinced he had done the right thing. What he didn't know was that this single act would mark the beginning of his downfall, and within hours he would discover exactly who Danielle Moore really was. Sitting in the cold, gray holding cell, Danielle tried to remain calm, though turmoil brewed inside her. Her light pink t-shirt, emblazoned with the words, "Justice for All," felt like a cruel irony in the moment. Remembering her father's words about the importance of standing up for her rights, she straightened her back and took a deep breath. Meanwhile, Todd Bennett sat at his desk, smirking as he wrote up the incident report. To him, this was just another lesson in discipline for a problematic teenager. His colleagues exchanged uncertain glances, but none dared to intervene. At that moment, the police chief's phone rang. The voice on the other end was firm and unwavering. "This is Judge Michael Moore. My daughter has been unjustly detained by one of your officers. I'm on my way. I suggest you prepare the paperwork for her immediate release." The name made the police chief freeze. Judge Michael Moore was known for his impeccable reputation, his high-profile cases against police misconduct, and his influence within the judicial system. 30 minutes later, Michael arrived at the station. Tall and imposing, with perfect posture and a dark gray suit, he exuded authority. His piercing gaze caused the officers to step aside as he walked directly to the front desk and coldly said, "Where is my daughter?" Todd, standing nearby, slowly rose to his feet. Seeing the man before him, a chill ran through him. "You're her father?" Todd stammered. "I am her father and a judge," Michael replied sharply. "Now release her immediately." When Danielle was escorted out of the cell, her expression remained calm, but her eyes radiated quiet confidence. Seeing her father, she allowed herself a restrained smile. Michael embraced her, then turned to the police chief. "I demand a full investigation into your officer's actions. What he did not only humiliated my daughter, but also tarnished the integrity of your department." Outside the station, a crowd had gathered, chanting, "Justice for Danielle." Todd realized he was in serious trouble. One of his colleagues leaned in and whispered, "You just arrested Judge Michael Moore's daughter." Todd tried to defend himself. "I was just doing my job." But Michael cut him off with a cold glare. "Your job is to protect, not to humiliate. You will answer for your actions." The crowd outside grew louder, and social media was already abuzz with videos of the arrest, tagged with #Justice for Danielle. As Michael walked his daughter out of the station, he turned back to the police chief and said, "This is only the beginning. I'll see you in court." The next morning, the story of Danielle Moore's arrest had taken over the internet. Videos of the incident, captured by neighbors, had garnered millions of views. The hashtags #JusticeForDanielle and #EndPoliceBias were trending worldwide. News outlets picked up the story, highlighting how a teenager was arrested for selling lemonade, and the public's outrage was palpable. Todd Bennett woke up in a cold sweat, his phone ringing incessantly. The police station was under siege by journalists, and the police chief had summoned him to the office. "This is a disaster," the chief said icily. "You've made us the center of a national scandal. The mayor is demanding your suspension." "But Todd began, only to be cut off. "You were doing your job? Arresting a teenager selling lemonade? What were you thinking?" Todd was suspended from duty. Outside the station, hundreds of protesters had gathered. Signs reading, "Justice for Danielle" and "Stop Police Racism" filled the air as news cameras broadcasted the scene live. Meanwhile, Judge Michael Moore and his daughter held a press conference. Standing before a sea of microphones, Michael delivered a powerful statement. "We will not tolerate a system that allows bias and discrimination to flourish. My daughter's arrest is a symptom of the deeper issues faced by Black Americans every day. We demand justice." Danielle, standing beside her father, took the microphone. "I'm grateful for your support, but this isn't just about me. Every day, teenagers like me face similar situations without anyone to defend them. This has to stop." Her speech was met with a standing ovation, and social media exploded with praise. Calls for police reform and anti-racism training grew louder. Todd, sitting at home, scrolled through the comments under the viral video. Words like "racist," "disgrace to the badge," and "he needs to be held accountable" hit him like a tidal wave. He felt his reputation crumbling. Friends and colleagues distanced themselves, and he realized his name had become synonymous with police misconduct. That evening, a national news program aired a segment dedicated to the incident. Panelists debated the need for police reform, with one expert stating, "This case highlights how bias erodes trust in law enforcement. We must do better." At the same time, a social media campaign began raising funds for educational programs to combat racism. Thousands of people donated in solidarity with Danielle. The next day, Michael Moore filed an official lawsuit against the police department, accusing them of unlawful arrest and racial discrimination. Protests intensified, and Todd felt his life unraveling. But this was only the end of the beginning. A week after the scandal, the court hearing for Danielle Moore's case captivated the nation. The courtroom was packed with journalists, activists, and ordinary citizens who came to support Danielle. Judge Michael Moore served as the plaintiff, accusing the police department of the biased arrest of his daughter. Todd Bennett, sitting at the defendant's table, looked defeated. His face was pale, and he avoided eye contact. Over the past week, he had lost his job, become the target of online harassment, and even received threats. For the first time, he began to grasp that his actions were not a simple misunderstanding, but a symbol of systemic racism. In his opening statement, Michael Moore declared, "This case is not just about my daughter. It's about every child who fears a system that was designed to protect them. We demand not only justice for Danielle, but systemic reforms to ensure incidents like this never happen again. Witnesses, including neighbors who had seen the arrest, described Todd's behavior as aggressive and unjust. The court reviewed the video footage of the incident, forcing Todd to watch his humiliating actions under the scrutiny of the public eye. When Danielle took the stand, her voice was steady. "I am not a victim. I am a voice for those who cannot defend themselves. I ask this court not only to hold those responsible accountable, but to help us change this system." Her words were met with thunderous applause. The court ruled in favor of the plaintiff. The police department was found guilty of a biased arrest. The department was ordered to implement mandatory anti-racism training, and a significant financial settlement was awarded to Danielle and her family. Michael Moore announced that the funds would be used to establish a foundation dedicated to protecting the rights of youth. A new beginning. Months later, the city began to change. Educational programs aimed at combating bias became mandatory for law enforcement officers. In the park where it all began, a commemorative plaque was installed, reading, "Justice begins with each of us." Todd Bennett, after completing anti-racism training, attended a meeting at the local community center. There, he encountered Danielle. Struggling to find the right words, he finally said, "I was wrong. I'm sorry." Danielle, wise beyond her years, looked him straight in the eye and replied, "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. I hope you can learn from this and use your influence to do better." A movement for change. Danielle's story inspired thousands across the country. She continued her advocacy work in her school's club, and her lemonade stand became a symbol of the fight for equality. No longer standing alone, Danielle now had the support of an entire movement determined to change the world.